city burned in the distance, its flames stretching toward the heavens like dying prayers. Smoke curled through the empty streets, weaving between shattered stone and broken bodies. The war was over, but its final battle had just begun. Ah Ming stood at the temple steps, jian in hand. His breath was steady, but his grip was tight. Across from him, Lin stood unmoving, her dark robe shifting with the wind. Her sword was raised, yet her gaze held more than resolve. Regret, memory, an unspoken farewell. They had fought side by side, bled, trusted, betrayed. Now, fate had led him here, to a choice neither had ever wanted to make. The wind howled through the ruins. Neither spoke. There was nothing left to say. Then, the steel flashed. And fate took its final breath. Ah Ming and the Fading Kingdom. A valley shrouded in silence, its ruins swallowed by an unyielding fog. Once, banners of gold and crimson crowned these streets. Now, only fractured spires and shattered statues remain, half consumed by ivy and time. The morning sun bleeds weakly through the mist, casting a sickly golden glow over the desolation. Rainwater drips from broken archways, pooling in the cracks of cobbled streets. A tattered banner stirs, its sigil lost to the ages. That night, the city burned. Smoke curled through the streets, weaving between the bones of the fallen. The echoes of battle had faded, leaving only silence, a silence heavier than death itself. A lone figure stood at the temple steps, his dark robes billowing in the wind. Ah Ming gazed over the ruins, his hand resting on the hilt of his jian. The scent of ash and betrayal, thick with unspoken questions, clung to the air. A moment later, footsteps echoed behind him. Someone was coming, and with him, a fate he could not escape. The palace stands on the world's edge, its marble pillars fractured yet unbowed beneath the weight of twilight. Torn banners, once proud, whisper in the evening wind, their faded sigils unraveling thread by thread. Below, the city smolders, a sea of distant smoke and restless shadows. The streets churn with unseen voices, the echo of rebellion carried on the breeze. That night, the sun's last light bled red across the sky, as if mourning the fall of a dynasty. The throne within stood empty and cold, its silence heavier than the ruin beyond. A moment later, footsteps echoed in the great hall, not of a ruler, but of something else. The statues stand like silent sentinels, their cold stone gazes fixed upon the restless square. Cracks mar their weathered faces, as if time itself conspires to erase their rule. In the alley's embrace, shadows shift and whisper. Cloaked figures linger in the dim glow of dying lanterns, their murmured words swallowed by the wind. Their eyes flicker, watching, waiting. Silver-clad soldiers march past a moment later, their polished armor gleaming beneath the moonlight. Their steps' rhythm is steady and unwavering, yet unease lingers. Tonight, something stirs. Tonight, the whispers may become a roar. The air is heavy with silence, thick with the ghosts of fallen kings. Golden chandeliers sway, their dim light casting restless shadows across the decayed grandeur. The throne sits hollow and forsaken, its once lavish cushions torn, its armrests fractured by time and treachery. A dark stain mars the marble, a wound that history refuses to forget. The wind stirs the dust a moment later, whispering through the empty hall. At the throne's base, a lone sword leans against the cold stone, its blade dulled but unbroken. It waits for a hand bold enough to claim it, and a soul willing to bear its curse. The chamber breathes silently, a tomb of lost prayers and forsaken oaths. Walls of ancient stone writhe with carvings, serpents coiling in endless, watching spirals. Torchlight flickers, its glow dancing across the damp air, awakening shadows that slither like specters. Dust swirls, disturbed by unseen movements, as if something remembers. A moment later, the wind shifts, carrying the scent of age and sacrifice. An altar looms at the chamber's heart, stained, rusted, waiting. Chains lie slack, their purpose long fulfilled, yet the air still hums with the whispers of past offerings. Some gods do not die. They only wait to be worshipped again. Ah Ming stands upon the jagged rocks, his dark robes rippling like storm-torn banners. The salt-laced wind howls, yet he remains still, a figure carved from steel and shadow. His jian glints beneath the moon's pale gaze, its edge kissed by the night's chill. Far beyond, the sea churns in restless whispers, mist curling over the waves like ghostly hands. A moment later, black-sailed warships emerge from the fog, silent phantoms on the water. Shadows stir upon their decks, unseen, but watching. The battle has not begun, but Ah Ming knows. The tide is already turning. Flames crackle behind him, their glow painting the night in hues of ruin. Zhang exhales, grinning, as he wipes fresh blood from his dao. His tunic hangs in tatters, his skin slick with sweat and battle's fury. The air reeks of iron and smoke, yet he stands at ease, broad-shouldered, unshaken, savoring the chaos. A moment later, a scream cuts through the din. He rolls his shoulders, glancing toward the next fight with a smirk. The battle isn't over. Good, he's not done yet. Rain slashes through the night, drumming against stone as Ah Ming and Zhang stand back to back, blades gleaming in the darkness. Their breath is steady, but their muscles coil like drawn bows. A moment later, shadows shift. Masked assassins close in, their curved blades glinting with cruel intent. The alley is a cage, slick with water, thick with the scent of damp earth and steel. Lightning rips across the sky, briefly exposing the killer's faceless menace. Zhang smirks. Ah Ming tightens his grip. The storm will drown the screams, but the fight has just begun. Ah Ming sits astride his horse, a lone figure against the inferno's glow. Below, the city writhes in flame, its towers crumbling beneath the weight of war. A moment later, the wind shifts, carrying the distant cries of the fallen, their echoes lost in the crackling blaze. His jian remains sheathed, yet his fingers tighten around the hilt, a silent war waged within. His expression is unreadable, but his eyes betray him. Is this victory, or merely the cost of fate? Zhang strikes the match, the flame catching with a whisper. The red lantern glows, its light swaying like a heartbeat in the still night. A moment later, shadows shift around him, rebels honing their steel, tightening their grips. Faces half lit, half hidden, their silence hums with unspoken resolve. The night stands on the edge of something vast, something irreversible. Zhang exhales, watching the lantern rise. By dawn, the city will burn. But tonight, the revolution breathes. Lin stands poised, her blade a whisper from the fallen king's throat. The flames behind her dance in her sharp eyes, not with rage, but certainty. A moment later, the scent of burning silk lingers, the throne room now a ruin of shattered power. The king trembles, but she does not. She is neither cruel nor kind, only precise, a predator who has already won. She tilts her head, studying him like a broken chess piece. The game is over. The only question left is how it will end. Candlelight flickers, casting wavering silhouettes upon the silk screen. Lin sits motionless, her gaze unreadable as whispers coil through the dim chamber. A moment later, gold glints before her, scrolls lie sealed, power shifts in unseen hands. Deals are forged in silence, veiled in shadow, bound by unspoken oaths. Beyond the curtain, rulers wear crowns. But here, in the quiet dark, true power is decided, and Lin is already 3 moves ahead. The city screams below, swallowed by a sea of fire, its bones turning to ember and ash. Smoke thickens the night, heavy with the scent of ruin, of stories ending before their time. And above it all, Ah Ming and Lin stand, silent, unmoving. A breath apart, yet worlds away. Fate and regret entwine in the space between them. In the unspoken weight of all they have done, their eyes meet. Not love, no, something older, something written in the marrow of their souls. Understanding, destiny, the quiet ache of choices made too late. The wind wails through the hollowed streets. Flames rise. And still, the kiss does not come. Only the ghost of a touch that never was, a whisper of what might have been, before the world began to burn. And so it goes. Dawn bleeds across the battlefield, its light cold, indifferent. Shadows stretch over the ruins of war, casting long fingers over the nameless and the known. Lin moves through the ashes, her cloak whispering against the dead. She does not turn back. She does not hesitate. Around her, silence hums with voices that will never speak again. Friend and foe, bound now by the same quiet fate. Smoke lingers, a dying breath of treachery and regret, but she does not mourn. Whatever she was, whatever she lost, lies buried beneath the weight of the fallen. And still, she walks, and so it goes. Mist curls between them, a restless spectre of things left unsaid, thin as the thread of fate. Ah Ming's grip tightens, yet his sword has never felt heavier. Lin stands before him, blade raised, unwavering. Yet beneath the steel in her eyes, something softer lingers. Regret, memory, a choice already carved into the bones of destiny. The wind howls. Silence lingers, vast and knowing. This was always the path, always the ending waiting in the dark. Steel sings. The mist rises, and fate exhales its final breath.